How's it going, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of Crypto Clout. I am your host, FaZe Crypto, and today we will be talking about Cardano. And of course, we've seen a pretty interesting development in Bitcoin. Of course, this article right here sort of does encapsulate. Bulls say it's time for Plan B as Fed ramps up on operations. We've got a conversation about quantitative easing and definitely going to talk about that check for that could be going out to the American public. So I mean, all these different things. Of course, a grand economic slowdown, the likes of which haven't really even been experienced by this generation or even the one before it. Definitely going to be interesting to talk about. Bitcoin now hovering around the $6,000 mark. It will be very interesting to see how a lot of these different aspects and dynamics play out overall in the cryptocurrency scene. And I want to talk about the concept of blockchain and essentially what we're seeing. And I shared this out on Twitter. There was this video of a lady who was working at a bank, and essentially she was spraying down all the bills with some sort of disinfectant. And you can go and check that out on the Twitter as well. It's at CryptoTuber on Twitter, and I think that sort of is a hallmark of one of the greatest advertisements that we could honestly currently see for something like the current situation as it unfolds before us. And especially while we watch a lot of these different dynamics play themselves out, will be very interesting to watch the play-by-play as we see, and I think that it is probably one of the best advertisements that we could pretty much expect in terms of talking about the different things that we could see happening when people realize Bitcoin is actually a safe haven asset. I think that's a pretty funny meme as well. So we've got Bitcoin, sort of at that $6,000. It will be a pretty deciding moment. Of course, that region does. We do have that $7,200 resistance, and I think that right now it'll be very interesting. Of course, we saw Bitcoin at the $3,000 region as well, and now, of course, with a lot of these different economic slowdowns, we've been seeing people have been recognizing Bitcoin as sort of the safe haven asset class. Now, as much as that is a debatable conversation, it is one that is a looming concept. And of course, we did have the recent breakthrough in quantum computing, which of course is something that remains to be seen and does, of course, bring up a whole question now about cryptocurrency at large, which I would say is in of itself an advertisement for Cardano, which does still hold itself in a position where the team actually has this ability to sort of maneuver with the current shifting dynamics and isn't exactly set in stone, which of course is something that I think is a forward-looking, almost bullish prospect for Cardano. But what I want to get into right now, I want to play this video by the Crypto Lark, which talks about Bitcoin. So we're going to play this right now.
This crisis that is unfolding before us, of course, terrifying, but Bitcoin can rise from the ashes of this. Personally speaking, in an economic recession, or even if we go into a depression, I'd much rather have a good percentage of my wealth sitting in Bitcoin. The banks cannot be trusted. The system cannot be trusted. But Bitcoin can be trusted. Bitcoin is truly the shining city on the hill of finance, whose beacon light will guide the freedom-loving people of the world everywhere away from the darkness and dysfunction of fiat. And of course, into the age of economic enlightenment and personal economic freedom. Bitcoin will free people from the shackles and the depravities of the criminal banks and free us from the perversions of politicians and bureaucrats. I choose freedom. I choose Bitcoin.
So there are 100% some very interesting points made in that video about Bitcoin, in particular, what we can expect to see, in the developing scene, and especially while we watch a lot of the different global events as they've been sort of coming into their own. And I think it will be very interesting to watch a lot of the different dynamics and, of course, speculate to a large degree about what we can expect to witness happening, overall as cryptocurrency comes into its own. And I mean, I think right now, I mean, you guys wanted me to give some sort of speculation in terms of where we could see the price of Bitcoin going from here on out. And I could say that it is likely that we could revisit that $3,000 region again. I don't think that that's completely out of, I don't think anybody would argue against the potential in that, in that respect. But at the same time, I mean, I think that it will be interesting to see just over the next 3 months how we see a lot of the different markets playing out. And of course, so I mean, we have some of these different articles right here. Liquidity crisis continues. And of course, BitMEX wick reaches 8,700 on Bitcoin futures, which was interesting. Ripple, prepares to take off the next 2 years with Asia being its main focus. So, I mean, it will be interesting just to see how the world in general sort of moves along. I hope everybody out there is staying healthy. Hopefully everybody out there is stacking toilet paper, and of course, and by that I don't mean fiat, but yeah, of course, remember this video is for entertainment, educational purposes only. Of course, I'm not your dad, I'm not your financial advisor. Merely making this content out of the goodness of my heart, just so that I could help by sharing my opinion, and I invite you all to do the same. So make sure you guys comment down below letting us know what you think, and we'll see you guys next video. Have a good one. $8, so it will be interesting just to see, and of course, Bitcoin crash sees driven by long sought institutional buyers, and of course we have had many people who've been taking the opportunity and acquiring that sort of sought after full Bitcoin, which is interesting. Bitcoin is holding its own. And that's not too shabby. So, I mean, considering the different situations that we've been seeing, many people swiped up their Bitcoin, their full BTC at that $3,000 level, which was interesting as well. Bitcoin's crash seen driven by long sought institutional buyers. So wait until institutional investors show up. Had mantra for Bitcoin advocates, yada yada, but still at the same time not very interesting. Other than that, there's not really very much to talk about. I mean, there's obviously plenty of things we'll be covering later on, but just wanted to give voice to what we had been seeing happening with Cardano. Of course, darknet vendors work over. Halting drug arrests, so sort of interesting. Bitcoin, Ethereum, classic, AMP Litecoin, definitely interesting. Gold crashes as shops close, Bitcoin still open, and I think that Bitcoin will prove itself to come out the other end, of this steady and straight. Gold has fallen 13% since Black Monday amid market turmoil across the globe that sees Germany, the latest to shut down, ahead of quays are apparently forming at gold shops, but the mini surge is demand properly peels in corporation to the weeks-long closure in Italy, and now in France, and immediately in Germany, as well as some U.S. states. So that's also interesting. Be paying very close attention as we see different developments along those lines. But I'd still make a positive case for Cardano. I mean, I wanted to start off having more of a measured response, to the things that we've been seeing. I don't want to just come out of the gate, but I do think that, from a technological perspective, Cardano does have a significant advantage, in the developing world of cryptocurrency, the Internet of Things. And I think that the COVID sort of situation, which is still developing, has proven to be an interesting example of, the nature of how information travels in the current age. We have a very interesting dynamic now, and it does go and show for you how the internet and the real world have overlapped in a communication sense. In the way that this is the all-encompassing nature of news headlines,
is definitely one of note and will be very much part of the history book.